Contrary. Parking on Brunswick Street. That was correspondence. Councillor Pink.
Yes. I'm not sure where we stand on this with respect to a legal opinion. I know that the CAO had asked for that, but I was over to visit that site in the last couple of weeks and had a good look at it. And at that part of Brunswick Street is one of the widest parts of that entire street, but yet if you look at the parts further south, there are no parking signs on even one side of the street. People can park on both. And I couldn't quite understand why it was that these signs went up like they did. Well, as it turned out, and as we all know, it appeared that there was really only one complaint, not several complaints. And well, there might have been more than one complaint, but there was only one complainant, if I could put it that way. I spoke with a resident who has lived about 3 or 4 houses from that area. He's lived on that street for 46 years. And in 46 years, there's never been a single accident, not a single accident in that entire little strip that we're talking about. There was only one accident, he told me, about a year and a half ago, which was at the intersection of James and Brunswick, because a car went through the stop sign. But there was no accident down going towards Brunswick by the bowling alleys. So I think, you know, everybody has tried to sort of perhaps deal with the situation and respond to a citizen's complaint and so on. I'm not really sure what the real complaint is. I understand it might be that the complainant has a problem backing out of his own driveway because there are cars parked across the street. Maybe he's afraid that he's going to hit one of those cars. But in my opinion, I don't see why those signs had to go up. I know that the traffic authority, because I read the memo, the traffic authority said that for safety reasons, but my gosh, if it's safety there, then the traffic authority ought to better do a study, because there's a whole lot of other areas that are, in my opinion anyway, are far worse for safety. So to get this thing on the table for discussion purposes, I'd like to make a motion that the traffic authority be consulted, but that the motion would be that those signs come down and it go back to the way it was.
Second. Move to second. And Councillor, any comment? Councillor Langell.
Well, Your Worship, just a question for the CAO. Do we have that right to do that? I understand the traffic authority is a force unto himself. That I think we went through this, I jumped through this hoop when we brought up the issue of the sidewalk down on Water Street, and I remember being told that the traffic authority does not have to follow the direction of council. Is that not correct?
CAO.
I'll defer to the solicitor on that.
Yeah, it is the traffic authority's decision. The town could, as he did with the stop sign over there, ask the traffic authority to reconsider his decision, but the traffic authority does make the final decision, and the town can't, council can't pass a motion forcing the traffic authority to do that.
Councillor any other questions or comments? Councillor McKenzie.
Your Worship, I guess thank you. So I guess the question would be: is the motion in order? Because we can't, you know, it's unlawful, so we can't really do it. So should that motion remain? And the other question I had was, how did it? I have two questions actually. How did it come to the situation whereby the traffic authority was placed upon our engineer and our engineering office, and how and why was that? Or I guess if that's the same question. And wasn't it at one time with the RCMP?
I think, yeah, one time it was with the RCMP, but we had a period, I guess, way before I was at the table, that we had a 3 or 4 staff sergeants in a span of 5 or 6 years. So the traffic authority, probably every second year, was new RCMP officer came in, had a different idea on traffic and patterns, and he'd be changing sidewalks, he'd be changing stop signs, he'd be changing everything. So there was about 4 staff sergeants in a 7-year period. So they said for a consistent approach, they'd put it with the town engineer.
Do we still have that issue that with the inflow and outflow of staff from the RCMP? Would we still
We
have that
haven't
issue
had
if it
in,
was-
we haven't had in the last couple of years, but, you know, I'm not going to say Kevin's getting up there, but he's a little younger than me. He's been in the RCMP for 20-something years, so there, you could have a period where you could have a staff sergeant here, a couple in a couple of years.
I think, I'm wondering if it's worth discussion on the floor, if we can actually have a discussion when we don't really have a formal motion on it, but maybe it's worth discussing, either at this meeting or at the committee of the whole, the rationale of it remaining in the office that it is, or moving, if willing, the RCMP is willing to actually take it upon themselves. Maybe they're not willing or have the staff to do it, but maybe it's worth discussing that, and I would
After we
if
deal
that
with this
motion's on the
motion, make
floor-
that motion to discuss it next committee of the whole?
Sure, I'll wait till that motion's been disposed of, and then I'll move my motion.
Yep. Councillor Pink.
Your Worship, the motion, I think, is in order, because the motion simply says that the council would like to have those signs come down, and if it's a unanimous motion and it goes to the traffic authority, you might want to reconsider his position. The way I read his memo, I didn't get the impression from the traffic authority that he was gung-ho to that, man, these signs have to go up because there could be some kind of an emergency or an accident happening like tomorrow. I think he was responding. He looked at it and said, well, you know, it doesn't quite meet the guidelines. It seemed like the biggest concern when I read the memo was in the wintertime with snow and ice and snow removal. Well, maybe there could be some, obviously no parking signs or whatever during snowstorms. I mean, that's probably the rule anyway, that you have to have your vehicles off the street so that the vehicles can get through. So I really don't see it, and I think, and for clarification, because I was on council back when the traffic authority when the town engineer became the traffic authority as opposed to the chief of police, and Councillor Dares and perhaps Councillor Boudreau can remember, but the reason for it was because the council at that time felt that the police were making decisions that were not, where there was gray area and it wasn't in keeping with what the council wanted. So the truth of the matter is that council voted to have one of its own staff members be the town engineer, because we thought, well, he works for the town and he might be more amenable to the decisions of the council of the day. And that is the real reason why the town engineer got the appointment instead of the chief. Now it's sort of backfiring perhaps in our face, because if the majority of council or all of the council would like to see those signs come down and the traffic authority says no, they're not coming down, then obviously that's an issue. So in any event, the motion is there on the floor. I think it would be a good idea to pass the motion and then ask the traffic authority to reconsider its
Let's try to
position.
keep the individuals out of it, please. Okay. Councillor Langell, I know this is going to pass unanimously, so do you have one final quick comment?
Yes, I do. I'm like Councillor Pink. I was absolutely amazed on the speed by which this exercise was done. It was refreshing to see the traffic authority move with such speed on this issue from one citizen, considering the number of requests that I've seen go to the traffic authority that's taken quite a long time to process.
Please. That's uncalled for, Councillor. Question. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary?
And that is to bring it back for discussion.
No, that's to bring.
Was to have the signs removed, make a request to the traffic authority to have the signs come back. And I just wanted to say one thing.
Well, we have Councillor McKenzie, then Deputy Mayor. Councillor McKenzie.
I'd move that at the next committee of the whole, the issue or the current state of the traffic authority being placed in the engineer's office be looked at for consideration to be either moved back to the RCMP or left where it is.
Move to second. Councillor, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Dares, and Deputy Mayor. Councillor Dares.
Thank you, Your Worship. You know, we're not appointing a puppet here. We're appointing somebody who, in their professional opinion, puts all efforts in the interests of the public safety to his task. And you know, I was here when we did go through a few staff sergeants, and it was felt that for continuity and for the best interests of the future of the safety of the citizens, that it should be, you know, somebody who works for the town, who knows well the geography of the town and the incidents of the town, and to have that longevity behind him or her so that the decisions that are made by that officer for council are sound and in the best interests of our public. And so, you know, because you don't like a decision that's been made by the traffic authority to consider changing the way, the who of the traffic authority is ridiculous. And if you're looking for a puppet, well then I guess that's the way to do it. But if you want sound decisions made in the best interests of your public, then you appoint somebody and you stick to it, and he's got the background and the training and the education that he needs to make those decisions. So, you know, I don't support it.
You, Deputy Mayor.
Well, I just wanted to talk on the Brunswick Street issue for 1 second. And what it is Brunswick Bowling Lanes is there. They've been there for a lot of years, like Councillor Pink mentioned. In the winter time, what's worse than when they have all kinds of people around there in cars, right? And then here we're talking about one vehicle. To me, it's not even an issue.
Yep.
It shouldn't have been an issue, and as far as I'm concerned, the parking should have never parking should have never been taken out of that area. I went there the other day and I parked there and I realized that I was in a no parking zone. I got properties there. People talk to me, what, you can't park on the side of the street anymore? Doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to a very brief discussion on the traffic authority, not traffic authority, on Dave Ernst. I don't think it's got anything to do with him being a puppet or whatever. We want a puppet. I think it's got to do with his workload. He has a heavy workload. I mean, it's not like the RCMP never done this before, and it's got nothing to do with Dave making this decision. It hasn't got it with me.
Yep.
He makes decisions all the time.
Yep.
And you know, you're either for it or against it. He has authority to do that.
We have a motion on the floor to bring it to committee of the whole. So
no, but I still wanted to comment, if you don't mind, Your Worship. But just that I don't want it to be put out there in the public that if we want a puppet, we think we have a puppet in place. That's not what I consider Dave. I consider Dave Ernst a hard-working engineer for the town of Yarmouth. If this is one thing that can be taken from his burden, then I think we should do it, or at least we should discuss it.
We're going to have that discussion.
Yeah,
well,
that's great, but I just want the public to know that we don't appoint puppets, and we don't do that. And anyway, I just wanted to make that statement, and hope everybody hears it.
Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Your Worship. The reason I made the motion is due to the fact that when I first heard that the traffic authority was actually placed within the engineer's office, my first question would be that I remember thinking was why? Why would the town engineer be involved in traffic as the traffic authority? To me, the RCMP endeavor to enforce traffic violations and to make sure that the Motor Vehicle Act is enforced and that people are driving safely, and to enforce the violators. So it would seem to me that they would have just as much expertise or more than our town engineer office to enforce and to make recommendations to the council. And I think they would actually be, I kind of maybe perhaps like the fact that they're an arm's length organization, that they're not contained within the town. So perhaps they're not going to be influenced by the council. They're going to make decisions based on the fact of safety. So, thank you.
Councillor Lanzo, final comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. Like Councillor McIsaac, I was offended by the chair's ruling. I mean, Councillor Dares did make comments about personalities, did make comments about puppets, and I think in fairness, Councillor McIsaac had every right, Mr. Mayor, to respond to those comments without being cut off. My only concern is, Your Worship, is the motion. I think the motion, I'd like to hear the motion because it did go quickly, if I may, Your Worship. May I hear the motion?
And I'd like to have a show of hands when the question is called, please.
So just for clarification, Your Worship, this is not suggesting a replacement. I understood the word review is in there. It's a dialogue. It's a discussion. There's not and there's no intention here. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. Excuse me, Your Worship, I know you don't like people talking too much. But the point of the matter is that I want to make sure I'm clear on what I'm voting on. There's no intention to appoint a puppet. There's no appointment here. It's a review. We're going to study the situation. Is that not correct, Your Worship?
Correct.
That's what we're voting on. Thank you.
Question.
Question.
Show of hands, please. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion is passed.